Hello and welcome to session 4. This is Philippa Burgess, and we're going to talk now about defense that work, detection, containment, and recovery wins. So that we've talked about some of the challenges that have gotten us here, and now let's see if we can talk about what's working and what can work better in 2026. So some of the things we'll talk about in this session are real-world examples where early detection limited damage across global environments, SOC and incident response workflows that reduce dwell time, identity containment, segmentation, and backup-driven recovery in practice, and repeatable playbooks and tabletop approaches adaptable across regions. And that was actually, I was going to say, tabletops and playbooks were definitely discussed in earlier sessions. So what do we see this worked well? That early detection is essential. So making sure it's hours versus days can separate contained breaches from crises. So attacks will happen, breaches will happen, data leaks will happen. It's kind of like, how are we handling it? How are we detecting it? How are we handling it? The ITDR and behavioral analytics caught 2025 breaches 4 to 6 times faster. SOC playbooks matter more than tools. Repeatable workflows reduce dwell time by 70% and contain damage by 50+%. Identity containment is now your primary lever. So revoke tokens, disable accounts, reset credentials faster than attackers can exfiltrate. And I feel like actually now that we're getting into this, like a lot of this is feeling like review. I think my colleagues here did a fantastic job of setting the stage that these were the issues and these were the containment methods. So we're also getting into that dwell time. So that's one of your North Star metrics. It's going to be the time from initial compromise to detection by your defender, not by attacker mistake or external disclosure. So definitely, sort of how quickly do you find that internally. So 2025 baseline, the global median dwell time was 11 days, and identity-based breaches were 18 to 24 days. So you can see that they are, the dwellers are dwelling, and that's something that we need to sort of consider. And then successful defenders with ITDR, behavioral analytics, 2 to 4 days, caught some incidences within hours. And then impact every day equals more lateral movement, more persistence, and more backup compromise. So that timing is just absolutely key. So what is that ITDR? Identity Threat Detection and Response. What it does, continuous monitoring of identity activity, token usage, impossible travel, bulk data access with behavioral baselines and automated alerts. So token velocity, spike in API calls during a single token, immediate alert. Possible tokens, token in New York at 9 a.m., Tokyo at 9 a.m., alert. So making sure that you're sort of seeing, is this even possible? Bulk read service account querying all users or all files, alert. And 2025 win is identity threat detection and response, caught the UNC 6395's sales loft token abuse within 2 to 6 hours before mass exfiltration. So we've talked about a lot of these cases, so now we're just kind of pulling it all together to say that defense is working and that this is the kind of stuff that needs to be applied across organizations. So you've got SSPM, which is SaaS Security Posture Management. What it does, continuous scanning of all auth apps and integrations, monitors permissions, usage patterns, and rogue apps. Suspicious publisher, app with an unknown domain is high-risk scopes. Make sure that pulls up an alert. Dormant reactivation, app unused for 6 months, suddenly making API calls, alert. Scope creep, app permission change post creation, alert. 2025 pattern, Gainsight Salesforce incident caught via SSPM within hours of compromise. So that moves us to behavioral EDR, catching living off the land attacks. So again, another term that we heard today was living off the land. How long are they in the system? So the challenge is attackers use legitimate tools, PowerShell, WMI, sys internals, signature, EDR, and MISPs. So privilege escalation sequence, who am I, to net local groups, to regular query, create alert. Lateral movement, RDP, PS, EXEC between systems that don't normally communicate, alert. Credential dumping, LSASS access, event log clearing, ntds.dit, exfil, alert. Behavior detection caught files, lists malware 2 to 3 days faster than signature-only tools. So sort of electronic detection and response is going to make a big difference. So case study, a 2-day detection win scenario, financial services organization, phishing and device code attack. Attackers gained corporate admin token. So day 0, phishing email, user entered device code, attacker got OAuth token. Day 1, ITDR alert, unusual bulk directory query at 2 a.m., SOC confirmed token compromise. Day 2, all tokens revoked, credentials reset, threat hunt, no mass exfiltration, only 2 secondary accounts affected. Outcome, 48-hour detection versus 11-day baseline. Cost, $500,000 IR plus remediation versus a $10 million for a full compromise. So these attacks are expensive, which is one of the reasons why being proactive and knowing about them and being ahead of them is essential. But you're never going to stop all attacks from happening or for getting into your systems, but knowing how to contain them or identify and contain them is absolutely key. Which leads us to SOC playbooks, repeatable response frameworks. Playbook structure, each scenario alert, what triggers the playbook and the severity level. Investigation, what to look for 15 to 30 minutes. Containment, what to do if confirmed, revoke, reset, disable. Recovery, how to restore safe access in 2 to 24 hours. And communication, who to notify, CISO, incident commander, legal. Every organization that successfully defended a 2025 incident had a playbook. So you don't wait for an incident to happen and then figure out, okay, what do we do? You should already know right away what your plan is. So 3 critical 2025 playbooks. Identity compromise, theft, token theft, phishing, device code, detection, ITDR alerts, containment, revoke tokens, reset credentials, recovery, MFA, re-enroll, OAuth, consent phishing, rogue app authorization, detection, SSNPS, containment, revoke app and tokens immediately, recovery, audit what app accessed, and then ransomware prep, lateral movement, credential dumping, boot sector mod, detection, behavioral EDR, containment, isolate systems immediately, recovery, restore from clean backups. So having backups to your data is important, and keeping those current and clean. So identity containment, your primary lever. The core principle here is once compromised, revoke all attacker-controlled credentials faster than they can exfiltrate data. Revoke refresh tokens, invalidates all active sessions immediately. Reset credentials, attackers' passwords become useless within minutes. Disable accounts, prevent any further access attempts. Rotate machine secrets, API keys, service account passwords reset. And the 2025 lesson was organizations with fast token revocation, which is like less than 30 minutes, have a limited blast radius to single accounts or small groups. So segmentation and backup-driven recovery, no longer optional. Organizations that recovered from ransomware without paying had these in place. Immutable backup, 30 to 90-day retention, isolated from production network. Network segmentation, ransomware can't jump from critical systems to backup infrastructure. Tested restore playbook, RTO, less than 4 hours for cloud and 24 hours for on-prem. Verified and zero trust backup access. Restore requires MFA and approval can't be bypassed by an attacker with stolen credentials. So making sure that, and actually I was going to say on the compliance side, and I come at cybersecurity from a legal academic training, it's illegal in a lot of cases to actually pay a ransomware. So companies are a bit stuck. And so it's really important that you can, and the organizations have a plan so they don't feel that they're beholden to that ransomware, because technically they're not allowed to pay it as a deterrence for ransomware attackers. And then, of course, if you pay ransomware, do you even know that they're going to restore it? And then there was one case where there were multiple attackers and the ransomware was paid, but they didn't pay the partner in crime, who literally said, well, we still have the data and we're still going to continue to compromise your systems and do bad things until somebody pays us. We don't care who, but we're supposed to be paid and we haven't been paid yet. So even paying a ransomware attack doesn't really guarantee that your systems will be restored or that bad things won't continue to happen. So that's why it comes back to tabletop exercises. We discussed this in session 1, and it's been sort of a through line through our sessions. So rehearse before a crisis. Every successful defender in 2025 had rehearsed similar scenarios in the prior 12 months. So scenario-based, deepfake CDL fraud, OAuth compromise, ransomware lateral movement, cross-team participation. Make sure you're not just going with your cybersecurity team, but you're getting security, IT, legal, PR, CISO, board, if critical, other people, departments, kind of understanding what roles they play in this rehearsal and scenario planning. And then timed execution from alert to investigation to containment to recovery. How long did each phase take? And the outcome is identified gaps, updated playbooks, trained team through realistic repetition. Now, for example, if you go years back with the Target breach, that went undetected for weeks. And even when the team in India alerted the team in Minnesota that they were seeing problems, the call was not even returned. And so it just continued to go. So there was just a gap between the alert and the investigation. There was none. And so making sure that the teams and the communication lines are clean and followed through on in terms of how the communication flows. And I think that's one thing that's often talked about is just alert fatigue. If everything's an alert, then suddenly nothing becomes an alert. So it's key to know what you want to alert, but making sure that you have both human eyes, and this is where AI comes into effect, because it can look for patterns and detect things that sometimes humans can't see, or at least not see in time. But communication is going to be key, whether that's, and this again, always kind of keeping that human in the loop. And so if the AI is throwing out flags, but the internal coordination and external transparency. So on an internal side, it's single incident commander, daily stand-ups, clear role definition, who's doing what. Organizations with clear incident commander model responded in 4 to 6 hours. And committee decision-making can sometimes take 24 plus hours. That's meaning people don't really know what their role is. So the more clearly defined roles people have, the more people can move into action and response. Externally, there's requirements globally within different countries and different regions. And so you need regulatory notification. So that's 72 hours for the European Union for the GDPR, and 30 days for CCPA, which is the California Privacy Act. It stands for California Consumer Privacy Act. And so customer notification needs to be early and transparent if there's a breach. Again, these are legal requirements. And it's okay to overly communicate early rather than under communicate and lose credibility. This is building on what Damir was saying earlier, which is trust is really important. And when you erode that trust, you lose business and you lose revenue. And it takes a lot. It's sometimes you can never build back that credibility, or it takes a long time. So the 2025 winners had pre-written templates and counsel relationships, so they knew when to reach out and contact attorneys for advice. And again, all of these things exist within a regulatory framework. So to know what those legal obligations are. So a 90-day plan is build, detection, and response. So weeks 1 and 2, inventory detection tools, identity gaps, ITDR, SSPM, draft 3 core playbooks. Weeks 3 through 8, deploy ITDR, SSPM, tune behavioral baselines, and do your first tabletop exercise. And weeks 9 through 12, validate backup recovery, plan segmentation, and schedule quarterly cadence. I'm going really fast, so let me just check in and see any questions, comments, input from our team, our colleagues. I just know I'm just like racing through this, so I just want to take a minute to just pause and slow it down. All right, Constantinos, I noticed you came back on camera. Hello.
Hello, Vera. Hello.
So I feel like we're picking up on a lot of the themes that you guys all set forth in sessions 1, 2, and 3. So I just wanted to, like I said, I felt like I was racing through a lot of the stuff, so I wanted to take a pause and see if you guys had some input, feedback on this, and I think we're covering a lot of the ground that you guys already sort of set the stage for. So I will continue, but if you guys have anything you want to add, feel free. Okay, so metrics that predict breach survivability. Dwell time. So you really want to get that target to less than 7 days that they are living off the land. So again, the baseline has been 11 days, but the leaders bring that down to 2 to 4 days. Mean time to response, the target should be less than 15 minutes for PO alerts. The mean time to containment, less than 30 minutes from investigation, start to action. Playbook usage target 80+% of incidents follow playbook, which shows that the team has training. RTO recovery time objective, test restore from 30-day-old backup target, 4 hours for cloud, or less than 4 hours for cloud, less than 24 hours for on-prem. Backup immutability, 100% of critical data in immutable backups, 30 to 90-day retention, no exceptions. So that's, and then the recap here is early detection, hours versus days, is the difference between contained breach versus a crisis. SOC playbooks matter more than tools. Repeatable workflows equals faster response, less damage. Identity containment is your primary lever, and that's what we had a whole, key sessions on. Revoke, reset, disable fast. And tabletop exercises and red team testing identify gaps before they're exploited. And I think that's another thing we'd say about red teaming is I think red teams are now using more AI tools as well to accelerate their ability to sort of identify gaps as well. So I was going to say, I raced through a lot of that. So we still have some time. So let's slow down and invite some conversation and some questions and some topics related to the defense of what's working, what could work better. Clearly, having a plan, having the backups, knowing how to do disaster, recovery, business continuity is key. Customer trust is key. Communication. Also want to talk about just data leaks and it's not so much even cybersecurity, because sometimes it's attackers we talk a lot about that, but sometimes data leaks are just internal compromises of data is not handled properly, data is not secured, and we get letters all the time. It's here in the United States saying your data has been breached, and a lot of times it doesn't really say kind of what the cause of that was, but sometimes it's just internal mismanagement, and it's not necessarily that there was an attacker. Other times there is an attacker. So in 2025, one of the big breaches was many hospitals got breached. Many public, I would say governments got breached, and schools and other places that may not think of themselves as a target, but they hold a lot of personal and private information or health data. And so it's, that kind of consumer trust. And then what can you do about it as defending yourself? So, for example, one of the things you can do is just making sure you're checking your credit, or you lock your credit so that people can't take lines of credit out in your name. If you are, and then there's different tools that you can use that show you what's been breached. So, defending yourself, including make sure you're updating your passwords, make sure your passwords can't be brute forced, and that they're complex enough and they're not just dictionary, and they're not things that are super identifiable to you that someone's going to figure it out because of things that it's connected to. So being more thoughtful about that. And then, so yeah, I'm just going to open up the floor to see what other defenses you guys have seen, and kind of elaborate on what we're talking about here. Demir, can I call on you to kind of add to the defense conversation?
Sure. What would you want me to add about some identity defense mechanisms, or what?
Yeah, I mean, what are you seeing in the defense landscape?
Well, depends. What are we defending?
Well, we're bringing it back to our title: attacks, breaches, and data leaks. So it's pretty broad.
Okay, so yeah, I guess you mentioned once earlier, detection would be thing definitely to count on. So it's better to treat than to repeat. It's better to treat it before it happens rather than dealing with the consequences, So definitely detection. So use XDR, the things that we talked in previous cybersecurity events. So Microsoft Defender, XDR. So those are all threat detection tools that can help you to first identify the problem and then to diagnose it. So you would have all the steps necessary to be taken if you are following zero trust framework. If you are following zero trust principles, you will eventually come to use one of the tools that Microsoft offers, and that is Defender, that is XDR. So, or other Microsoft Purview or some other tool. So definitely check those. I think they offer free trials up to a couple of months. And then if you are sure about the data leaks that might happen, then check Microsoft Fabric. Use Microsoft Fabric to organize on your data, to load, to process, and to transform your data. So if you are using different containers that data is coming from, why not organize the data so you don't have a leak because one source of data wasn't working. But if you are using transactional data, so if you are sure that if we get any data, then we get all of the data, then that's when Microsoft Fabric comes into a story. Know what is ETL, how to evaluate, how to transform data, and how to process it. And at the end, to transform it, yeah.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you. Konstantinos, you have anything to add on our defense conversation, and following on, because if obviously identity is the breach, as we've discussed as the key sort of theme for 2025. It might not have Konstantinos. So, Sam, I'll turn it over to you.
Philippa, I have a question basically. Can you tell me, according to you, what are the tabletop exercises that we rather want to perform before heading into the production stage of the web app or the app or the things? Can you tell me?
Yeah, I think I brought table topics up in your session too, saying, hey, we should really define that. And because I think that it seems like it's scenario based. So it seems like these are kind of exercises that we're running with a team, and that we're sort of saying, okay, I think they're based on playbooks, like what happens if and when, and then just kind of running through the scenario of a different situation of what's going to, how does that whole situation sort of play out. I think it comes back to number one is like clearly defining roles, who does what, and understand, because and that's what, like, trying to get consensus later, especially when an actual attack has actually happened, can be quite difficult. So to be able to kind of know early on what everybody's doing. Actually, Konstantinos, I'm going to ask you, what can you speak
And I
to?
wanted to ask you something.
Oh, yes, go for it.
Okay, you mentioned playbooks matters more than tools. So, what's one playbook step teams think they think quickly, but isn't necessarily under pressure? I mean, why this works?
Well, actually, what is it? One of the boxers says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. So you have to understand, yes, when a breach is never going to happen exactly how you think it's going to happen, but at least kind of having a sort of step one and step two. And I think, even if step one is what's all the things that we do to identify, and then step two, what is everything we do to contain, and then step three, what is everything we do to um, mitigate and recover, and then sort of get back to normal operations, which can include, sort of having, backups in place and other things. Konstantinos, can you elaborate a little bit more on what you know related to tabletop exercises?
Mm, what did you mean regarding?
Well, how do companies actually do their tabletop exercises?
Uh, I believe some of them is the phishing campaigns. Uh,
Oh, so when
uh,
they sort of set their employees up to see sort of how an employee is going to respond to a phishing email.
well, companies that perform well don't exercise tools. They exercise decision and muscle memories. I believe the most effective exercise are scenario driving and identified in focuses. Focused. So teams rehearse what happens after an attacker is already authenticated, how fast they can revoke sessions, invalidate tokens or remove privilege and stop data export, not just how to investigate. The best organizations run short, frequent tabletop exercises like 6 to 90 minutes, build around the realistic scenarios like token theft or auth abuse or a help desk compromise. They time every step: detection, containment, and escalation and recovery. What really matters is reputation. So the same playbook is run multiple times, so that actions like session revocation or with constant removal and admin privilege lockdown before automatic. So companies that only run annual exercise usually discover gaps during a real incident. Companies that run a quarterly focused exercise contains breaches in hours instead of days.
Yeah, and I think that that's a big one, is just reducing that time, because out that reduction of time that they have access is going to make a big difference. And I think that's one of the things they were saying, like the more people rehearse this and have their plan and have their playbook and know what to do. And I think the containment is key, the ability to revoke that access and limit the damage is probably one of the more important tools that the defenders have. Is that sort of fair to say that the containment stage is, once you've identified it, and obviously you want to do that quickly, but that the containment is really an important step of reducing that authorization, changing those passwords. changing and resetting the.
Um, Sorry.
Go for it.
Ah, no, I was thinking in the exercise you have seen work best. What's the first containment action teams struggle to execute under pressure? I mean, why this works? Because focus on the a real answer, not theory, or reinforce muscle memories, not, and depending some tools. So um, I don't know, or when exercises include identity compromise, which steps usually breaks down first. So session revocation, privilege, or containments needs to revocation or removal or revoke the authentication. It's many things that we can think.
What would you all say is the role of AI in defense in 2025, and how do we think that that's going to evolve in 2026? Both defending against AI and using AI
Well,
to defend.
it looks that in 2005 I didn't invent new attack types. It removed the friction and scale existing ones. So attackers use AI to move faster and cheaper, better phishing at scale or remove a believable impersonation, faster negotiation and quick adaptation during the live attacks. The big shift wasn't sophistication, it was speed and volume of the realities. AI looks dramatically improve social engineering, like personalized phishing, realistic deepfake voice for help-desk or executive fraud, and language perfectly used across region. That's why identity compromise accelerated. On defense, AI helped with triage and signal prioritization, but it didn't replace fundamentals. Teams that related on AI tools without fixed identity, hygiene, privilege, and playbooks still lost. So the lessons from 2005 is AI amplifies both sides, but the winners were the team with strong identity controls and fast containment, not the team with the most AI.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I like that. But the teams that can move fast, not the ones that necessarily have the most AI. Do we feel like the? I mean, obviously, there's the blue team, which is truly the defenders, but there's also the red team and the ethical hackers who have an important role to play because they look for the vulnerabilities. How are they using AI tools in their jobs, and how what was kind of new in 2025 for them, and what do we think is going to be sort of, and we'll talk more about this in our last and final session, but what do we think some of the tools that the red team is using?
Mm, I believe uh, uh, AI didn't make attackers magical. It makes them faster and cheaper. So automate OSINT like LinkedIn, GitHub, breach data or charts, identify like admins, finance, IT help targets, tailor your per role, region, and language. So it helps more like grammatically AI generated phishing that's grammatically perfect or context aware like projects, vendor titles. In a social engineering at scale, I'm talking about right now, in a, or a deep fake voice for a help desk MFA research or a executive fraud, or a chat-based interaction like email, Teams that adapts in real time. So fast attack iteration, rewrite phishing when detection blocks it, or adjust the natural based on victim response. Generate scripts to automate credential testing and to replies API abuse. That's the red team, from my perspective, works. So in blue team, it helps text to detect for detection. I mean, correlate identity signals like sign-in behavior, token usage, or privilege change, or data AI, data access to reduce alerts fatigue by prioritizing high-risk identity events. For example, new auth grant and usual export and new NGO. This is a high confidence alert. So behavior baseline, it's like learn normal for users, service principals as integrations, and the flag dimensions, it's unusual API calls, abnormal abnormal export volume, new device, async patterns. That's the impact is a huge, like identity abuse becomes visible sooner. And for the last one, I believe it's the faster integration, like summarize incidents, like what happened, who was affected, what permissions were abused, and helps analysts to answer: is it real? How bad is it? What do we shut first? AI helps analysts think faster, not think for them.
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess the other question, and we're going to get this more and more with deep fakes, and just but the way that our news is around the world is just the threat that is disinformation that people are not really clear about, and especially not just a deep fake related to a cyber attack, but just in general populations more and more are we're getting less clear about, was that real? Did that happen? Just the way that news is reported and the way that information is spread and the conspiracy theories get started. And so it's kind of another sort of threat vector that we have, is not just that deepfakes are really good for cyber attack and scams, but we are also have to just be more aware of our vulnerability to disinformation.
That's very really concerned, and it's actually one of the most important security lessons from 2005. It's not clear what's real anymore, and this this is why this matters. So in 2005, a blurred trusted signals, how someone writes, how someone sounds, how urgent and official something feels, whether a message looks polished or professional, are no longer reliable indicators or legitimacy. So the security problem isn't just better phishing; it's the human intention. Stop it being a dependable control. It could be language or a writing quality, voice or video, like you said just before. Right now, that the face voice makes speed and personalization. I mean, the message arrive faster, the right content, saying or is using internal terms and names. So the attack feels normal.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and so I think that just that level of disinformation, whether again it's coming from news or it's coming from media or it's coming from AI, and we see things, and so much of, like, for example, like what's on YouTube and what's on TikTok or Instagram are not real images, and yet we're consuming that as entertainment, and yet we blur the lines now between what is real and what is AI and what is not AI. So and just what is propaganda or influence. And so I think all of those sort of need to be part of what we're, let's say, defending against, but just what our general awareness is. Because we'll see things and we just don't know, is that real or is that AI generated? And if it's AI generated, is that okay, or is it really misrepresenting something? So just I don't know, just parts of what I think culturally we should all sort of be aware of. Cyan, do you have stuff to add to this conversation? I'm sure you do. What would you like to add?
Nah, nothing to add upon. Just had a question that I will just, I guess we will talk in the next session, I guess. So we can have that talk as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll be wrap up here in just a moment, and I want to just thank everybody for hanging with us. I know it's a long session, but we cover a lot of ground, and so next session we're going to really talk about 2026. Let's take this all into the future, like what comes next. I think we've done a really good recap of 2025 and sort of what's come before and how these threats kind of evolved year over year. And so in our next session, we're going to just do a deep dive into what does the landscape of 2026 look like. And this is definitely a team conversation. So all of our speakers are definitely invited to sort of, bring this home, bring this to a conclusion, and a really powerful forecast into preparing for, what's on deck, what's coming in 2026, and what do we need to prepare for, and how to best prepare for that, and then sort of breaking that into a more actionable sort of 90 days. And I think every session we've talked about had a preview of that 90 days for particular topics. And now we'll sort of wrap it up and bring it all together. So excited for our next session, and invite you to join us there. So to our Luma folks. And actually, on the chat right now. And yeah, so excited to see you guys all there. And I will wrap this out. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you in the next session.